Good afternoon, my friends. Good afternoon. 2/3 of January are gone. I believe this is January the 21st, which means that whatever you were going to do at the start of this year and get started this year, you better get to it. And I hope that your New Year's resolutions, which seem really important and a good time to resolve to a new direction, I hope they're still with you. I hope you're still doing it. They say it takes 9 months to break a bad habit and 3 months of repetitive doing to form a new one, a new good habit. So, 3 weeks into January. How are you? The sun is shining, and the prospects of life seem bright to me. I don't know what your political persuasion is, but I was inspired by words and poetry and the beauty of our hope in the inauguration of the president yesterday. But I want to go back to talking about Epiphany and the things that we're supposed to be, straining our eyes to see, maybe, or looking to see what's right in front of us. Looking to see what's right in front of us. When I was a philosophy major in college, my professor once said to me that, being a philosophy major doesn't turn into a lot of pragmatic financial rewards unless you go to law school, but here's one good thing you can take with you. You can be at a party and you can drop this phrase and people will, they may turn away and go, oh, you're just a nerd, but they might be impressed. And the phrase he talked about comes out of, philosophers were always trying to observe us as human beings. How do we know we know? How do we get certainty in life? Because philosophers were always discouraged by being fooled, by thinking thoughts that didn't turn out to be true. And so he gave us this phrase, the unobtrusiveness of the ubiquitous. The unobtrusiveness of the ubiquitous. It's a great phrase for Epiphany season. So let me unpack it for you. Unobtrusive, we know, and that means that it's not jumping out in front of you. The unobtrusiveness, the invisibleness of the ubiquitous. And that is that which is everywhere. Something is ubiquitous if it is literally all-encompassing. It's just all around us. And a metaphor and a follow-up phrase to this unobtrusiveness of the ubiquitous is the claim that fish know nothing of water. Fish know nothing of water. Now think about that. I have a fish tank in my house, and I don't know that'd be true for them, because sometimes I drain the fish tank down to clean it, and I get distracted, and the fish are flopping on the stones in the bottom because I drained it down too far. So the fish in my fish tank know that there is such a thing as being out of the water. But most fish know nothing of the existence of water because they know nothing of existence without it. That is because water in their life is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Literally, it's like the air we breathe. It's ubiquitous. You don't really notice the air is there. And so the part you don't notice is the unobtrusiveness. So in the season of Epiphany, we have to go looking. You have to go looking for what is all around you. It's the weirdest thing about life. They'll say, other sayings come out of this sort of pool of wisdom. You don't know what you have until it's gone. That's because that will be true, especially of something which is all-encompassing in your life. It's all around you. You take it for granted. You don't even know you're taking it for granted because you don't even know it's there. I said on Sunday in my sermon that in the book of John, if you were to summarize it, the whole book, it would be look. Look, 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 look. Look and see. Come and see. Look. There's light, there's darkness. The light, look in the light for things like it's our problem. It's our problem. It's all around us. The truth of God. And in the beginning of the gospel text, there it is. There's my yawn. In the beginning of the gospel texts, the drama of Jesus' attempt to engage his followers in, I don't know, the content of what he wanted to teach them was to teach them that, yes, you are searching for God. There's a kind of a search that goes on in the heart, even among people who would say they're atheists. They're still searching for meaning. They're searching for connection. Maybe they decide there is no meaning or there's no higher cause, but they're still searching for it to see if it's there. And Jesus turns the table on them and offers something else that is helpful in the season of Epiphany. That God is searching for you. God is searching for you. You and me. So the questing is not just in one direction. The ultimate reality of life is not, as it's described in the journey of faith, is not that God is off somewhere sitting in a chair waiting for us to find God. We are not the only questers. We're in a relationship that's complicated, that's sometimes convoluted and sometimes blocked. But if the block is described as a wall, I'm going to take a little, in the biblical language, the break in relationship between human beings and God is described as a gap. It's a gap. There is a gap, a breach. And that actually is the meaning of the word sin. S-I-N. It comes into Greek, but also carried over from the nuance of the Hebrew, is that the meaning of the word sin is break. It's a gap that exists in relationships. So sin is not so much an action. It can be an action if it's something that breaks relationships. But mostly it's a condition. It's a condition. It describes a broken relationship. So if you think about the obstacle in relationships as a gap or a great big valley, a chasm, as Jesus refers to it in one of his parables, then you try to breach the gap or the chasm by what? Calling to each other across it, or I don't know, flying paper airplanes with notes on it. But also, you could describe the relationship difficulty as a wall. It's a wall. There's a wall that exists between us and God, a wall that exists between us and each other in relationships. And in our human experience, we think of ourselves as, where are you, God? Where are you? Why can't I see you? Why can't I hear you? I'm looking for you. I want to know you, right? Which is right, we get that. But don't forget, what we learn about God in the scriptures is that God is searching for us on the other side of the chasm or on the other side of the wall. God is searching for us. You know, in the book of Genesis, in the account of the beginning of relationships, and the gap has come. The gap is there. In the beginning, it's not there. God and human, male and female, and nature all exist in harmony, which is a word for there's no gap, there's no break, there's no separation. Communication is clear, it's good, it's fine. Everybody understands what everybody else is saying. There's the warmth of connection, of belonging. You belong to me, and I belong to you. Adam says to Eve at one point, I am flesh of your flesh and bone of my bone, and I will follow you, and your people are... There's beautiful connection, all about relational connection. It works. And then it breaks. It's broken. And when it breaks, God comes walking through the garden, searching for Eve and Adam, calling to them, saying, where are you? And they say, well, we're over here hiding from you. And then God knows that brokenness has entered the world. The relationship is broken. It's fractured. The beautiful poet yesterday, Laureate, described our current time as democracy broken but not failed. Democracy broken, needing to be addressed. That's really more what the word sin is about. But I want to move on to the thought that I had coming into this conversation today, that John, and also the picture of Jesus in the early stages of his ministry, he goes out looking for the disciples. He goes to them. He calls them. He says, I found you. I know you. I want you to come and be part of my entourage. I want you to come and follow me. Jesus is coming from the other side of the broken relationship and seeking to be a repairer of the breach. That's another word that works well for the word sin. There is a breach in our relationship that needs to be repaired. And it's not just us on this side trying to close the gap. God is searching for us. And the reason I'm talking about it is because I think that's one of the things that is so ubiquitous that it's unseeable. One place in the Psalms, the psalmist writes that if you listen, if you go out into the wild and you listen, you will hear a sort of speech, a voice, a calling. The psalmist must have stayed out all night. She must have camped out, because she hears in the sounds of nature the speech of God calling out. The speech is pouring forth, is the image. Pouring forth. Day unto day, night unto night. The mountains are telling the glory of God. And that telling is not just a trumpet blast. It's telling the glory of God in an invitation, in a beckon from God to us to come. To come. Let's work. Let's breach. Let's repair the breach. Let's close the gap. Which, I think it's interesting, the variety of ways to get in touch with God's quest for us. I had an uncle, my dad's brother. He grew up as a Presbyterian elder, as a Sunday school teacher, and went through the rituals of the Presbyterian church, but partly because of an addiction he had and his discouragement, he left off with formal church, for the most part, not completely, and then he moved to Arizona. And when he got to Arizona, the part of Arizona where he owned a ranch, there were some some very, very, very flat lands. But when you drove for a while and you got into the foothills, the rolling foothills were high. And you could get up. He had four-wheelers, and you could take these four-wheeled motorcycles, and you could ride these trails, and you could climb up and up and up and up and up. And then you could sit on the crest of a foothill and see forever the glory of the mountains and of the wilderness and on one of several trips that I took out there, I felt so lucky to be able to go and spend time with him. And we had ridden on the four-wheelers to the top of the knoll of one of these foothills. And he turned to me, knowing I was a Presbyterian pastor, and every Sunday I was in church, and he knew that I knew. He didn't go to church anymore, really. And he gestured out over it all, and he said, "This is my church. This is where God meets me." Now, those scenes and vistas are all around us. The nighttime vista is fabulous. The daytime vista, the sound of a running brook, even if it's going through a city street, the thunder and the lightning, the crispness of the air, all these things, the psalmist says, are our speech, words that are pouring out to us, coming across the chasm, over the wall of the gap between us and God, and they're speaking to us. They're telling us the story of God's love and of God's care for us. But they are all around us all the time. And we don't really see. We don't really know. We don't hear. Because the ubiquitous is unobtrusive. Which is why in most of the disciplines of the Christian church, it's also true in Buddhism and in other Far Eastern religions, and especially in the tradition of the Muslim faith and the Jewish faith, why meditation is important. What meditation does is you quiet yourself, you listen, you use repetitive words sometimes, or sometimes repetitive music, over and over and over and over again. And what happens is the unobtrusiveness of God's presence is changed. And the ubiquitousness of it all emerges. And you can see and hear and know of God searching for you. I never liked, growing up, we always heard sermons and were told that, we should get up every day and we should pray and that we should do our devotions. That was what we called it. You were supposed to get out of bed and you were supposed to do your devotions, and I don't know. It never meant much to me. I think partly because they were asking me to do something I was too young to do. Like, read your Bible. Well, have you tried to read the Bible? Really? If you get lucky and you find some place that has some meaning for you, you're really lucky. It's not a book you can just pick up and read, especially not as a fourth grader or a second grader. You can memorize some passages if you're told. But I wonder, partly it was that my dad and my mom were both great proponents of this. Like, that's what you're supposed to be doing to show that you're a Christian. But they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The only regular and sort of ritual of our faith was that we prayed before we ate. Not before breakfast. We did not pray before breakfast. We did not all stop. There were 9 of us in the family. We did not stop and pray before we ate breakfast. We didn't. And mostly we didn't stop and pray before we had lunch, unless it was a lunch on a Saturday where more of us were sitting down. Supper time or dinner, you didn't begin eating until someone had said a prayer. And so there was this quieting of the activity. And I think in the quieting of the activity, we didn't really take hands either. We were not a touchy-feely family until we got older. But you were supposed to stop and wait, and stop and wait was probably the real devotion. But you were supposed to then wait for Dad, who would pray. And he always said the same prayer, but it wasn't a prayer anybody else knew. It just was his adopted prayer. And I think underlying it, the purpose of it was, before we eat our supper here, we should stop and think, and we should look around for what we might not have seen. That there's food on the table that somebody else prepared and that someone else made, and that we might want to offer a moment of thanksgiving to it. Because of the unobtrusiveness of the ubiquitous. If we don't stop and listen and notice. Now my phone is ringing over there, but it's come time for me to stop anyway. I hope that today has been helpful to you. The encouragement to you in the season is to look for that which you see all the time. Listen for God's voice to you, for God's calling to you. And I don't know, maybe that's God calling me on the phone. I'm going to sneeze too. So, that's my chat for today in this 21st day of January in the season of Epiphany. As we continue to let the light shine and look for the light and hope for the light and know that sometimes it's shining and we just don't see it yet. I hope you're well, my friends. I hope you're doing okay. The pandemic virus is more viral than ever. Please take care of yourself. Please, please do everything you can until you get your vaccination and your second one. Do everything you can to protect yourself and your loved ones, because I care about you. God bless you, and I will see you tomorrow.